Hello, everybody. My name is Karen Wisdom, and I am excited to be here. I'm so grateful that y'all are here. We're here for The Power of the Mind by Khentrul Lodrö T'hayé, and I have been his student for 16 years. And these teachings have really, the confusion that I've had in my life, he has really helped minimize that greatly. I mean, it's done wonderful, wonderful things in my life, and I'm so grateful to him. Also, in this area, I'm the coordinator for Katog. And so if you want to, you can just Google Khentrul Rinpoche. His name will come right up, and you can find the contact names of people if you have questions afterwards, okay? And anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and just read a brief synopsis of Rinpoche's life. Rinpoche was born in eastern Tibet. He began his formal training at the age of 7 when he took the first stage of Buddhist precepts. Rinpoche then spent over 20 years studying in some of the most prestigious schools for Buddhist philosophy and was fortunate to study and practice at the feet of some of the greatest masters of this century. During that time, he received 3 Khenpo degrees, equivalent to 3 PhDs, in Buddhist philosophy, and also spent several of those years in meditation retreat. Rinpoche is an abbot of a monastery in Tibet where he supports children's education, the monastic community, and a long-term retreat center. Rinpoche came to the U.S. in 2002 and has been traveling and teaching in the United States and other countries ever since. He established Katog Choling, a nonprofit organization, and oversees approximately 20 meditation groups across the country, as well as numerous community outreach programs called Compassion in Action. Rinpoche moved to the Ozarks in 2007 and has established a retreat center in the Ozark National Forest. So Arkansas is his home base, and we're grateful for that. Paloma Landry is Rinpoche's interpreter. Can't do anything without Paloma, and grateful to her. She studied Tibetan in Nepal and India and has been translating for Rinpoche since 2002 from the day he arrived. Rinpoche speaks English, but prefers to speak publicly in his native Tibetan language. This talk will be a combination of him speaking in Tibetan followed by the English translation. And so we're lucky, you're lucky, because we have 2 moderators. And so I'm going to introduce Sister Deborah, and she's going to say the thank yous.
Well, first of all, thank you to each of you for coming. My name is Sister Deborah T'hayé. I'm a Sister of Mercy, and I'm currently serving as the Executive Director for the Arkansas House of Prayer. And just for those of you who may not know about the Arkansas House of Prayer, it's an interfaith haven set apart in nature, dedicated to contemplative prayer, meditation, and quiet, where all are welcome. So I certainly welcome you to this wonderful opportunity with Rinpoche, and I certainly then extend a welcome to you to visit the House of Prayer to continue your practice based on the wonderful teachings we'll hear today. So before we begin, I just want to again thank everyone for being here. Certainly want to thank all the sponsors, the partners, the supporters who so generously make the Six Bridges Book Festival possible. And particularly the sponsor for this event is the John David Coulter Memorial Fund. If by chance Mrs. Coulter is in the audience. Ah, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so very, very much. So we thank all of you again. We thank our sponsors, but most of all, of course, we thank Rinpoche, and we thank Paloma for supporting this effort to learn more and more of your wisdom, Rinpoche. Thank you. One reminder, just so you know, and we don't have to interrupt it again, after this presentation, there'll be opportunity for you to purchase his book and have his signature in your book. Oh, there's Q&A too. We're going to stop the last 15 minutes. You'll have a chance for your own questions. Okay. With that, I think we'll begin.
Anybody don't understand my language, so. Teni taterang tan sokang di mangkare yenna ti nang to. Terang itep ko korchik shaya ko korkup kharswa tela. Tuje chejo watang teni dela yang yangtir ko yang ngijang teni dela nga so jindak sangla pe matapi kwaten che yukhyo. Teni tertawo yen teni ta kerang so di che to terang lep songwa cha changma la tuje che je wa tang deb jin do terang di nang la de na charwa ma bom ba yong ma tham kan te chu teni di nyang go ni ta khyo re o te cho cha changma la teni thank you ze kyos.
So I would also like to begin, Rinpoche said, with a thank you then to the Six Bridges Book Festival for hosting us here today in the Ron Robinson Theater, and especially I want to thank the sponsor again for this opportunity to speak here, and to all of you who came out in the pouring rain, and those of you who couldn't come, perhaps for the rain or other reasons, and are watching on the internet. Thank you, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to have this opportunity to speak with you today.
Oh yeah, teni ta kare la go gndo zena kare shirtanga ta sang chi la ga yor wa ya ta ches oh yeah teni nga chu tangbo ngi tep ko korni ngotrut dor tu pa chamchi ma shek yin teni te kare re zena ne shirtang ko tep di mang te la ne te power of mind se te nga chu mang te ta bu chi teni tag yo wa re teni ta nga chu sim ki nur tup ze te Togni gowa nga so zammo chi lenya yore oden ti togni ngop chung ngip shak yens.
So what I'll be speaking about this afternoon, Rinpoche said, is a brief introduction to the topic of my book, which has been titled The Power of Mind. And those words alone, the power of our mind, have a very profound import to us and to our experience. And so I'll begin by speaking about that.
Teni ta semki nurtup ze te shirtang ko nga chu ngubo kang dang kang yin na nurtup ze chi yore jikten gi kam kang yin na yang nga chu nurtup mesi ngubo kang yang yo mar cha chama la nurtup yong kan kyang kyang re holog yin na yang da teni me yin na da kangba yin na da te nga chu computer yin na da camera yin na da cha chang ra so su nurtup re yore yin na yang nga chu sem ze te nurtup te jamba tang chawa ni ni mandapi thomo man pi nurtup yo pa chi ko ko yore ti gimsen kar re ze na ne ta nga chu ni thoni ha ko gore ta nga chu sem ji pa te yu cha ni zong te dewa tang na dungar ke chornang chi nga chu yore Deepshirna nga chu chornang ti nang ni nga chu dewi chornang ta dewa te tu tak to gu yong kan ta dungar ke chornang te nga chu gu yo mar yinna yang shi yur ki ngu po sem maim pi shurur yur ki ngu po kang kari yin kyang ne ngātsu mā te mā re, ngātsu tī wār tā sōng tā sēm.
So when we talk about the power of mind, in general, it begins with understanding how every single thing in the universe has a power to affect. So each and everything that we encounter has an effect on whatever and whoever encounters it. There is no phenomena throughout the entire universe that does not have a power to affect. Everything affects other things, other people. It has its own sort of potential or influence that it brings. Whatever it is, like if it's solid matter like this building, or something more flowing like electricity, whether it's our devices, our computer or phone, or other such things, everything has an effect on whatever and whoever encounters it. So too, then when we talk about our mind, it also has a power to effect. But the power of our mind is unlike any other object in the universe. When we look at our mind, then in having a mind, then this ensures that we have sensations. For example, that we feel pleasure and that we feel pain. And so all living beings, everyone who has a mind, we call that in Tibetan sentient beings, then we all experience pleasure and pain, and therefore we're all in the pursuit of pleasure. In the bigger scale, we call that happiness, well-being, joy, good feelings. We're all in the pursuit of happiness, and none of us wants to experience any kind of suffering or painful sensation whatsoever, and so we're always trying to avoid or get rid of pain and suffering. And this is the case for everyone. Awesome.
Tere, teni ta ngātsu sem jibshawa tenda yut tsarni zongte tenro yin nang ra, ma yin nang ra. Ndorna sem chen zayate ngātsu tong tupi sem chen zuk chen dang, tong ma tupi sem chen gangjik yo nang ra, cha tsama te kotso sem chik yut tsarvi gyamtsan ki dewa tonto nyerin kan tang, dungur mandong ka kyang yinba ngātsu chikpa chikkyang re, cha tsama ngātsu chikpa re. Yinna yang ngātsu kar re zina ne, tenror nam yin kyang na shiror kyang ni khonsu dewi tsorwa te yong tap chik tang, dungur me par zo tap te yang na shiror kyang wa ka ta khala zaya tang, duksa tang, te tsog shekyo re. Ngātsu mu yinna ne, zambu lang ka ma cha tsang pe ma tepi kampul kere de chik tsar zhiwa. Ngātsu materialism ze re, ngātsu mang chik tang sang top tsar re. Te zena kare zena ngātsu dewa tang dungur tamchet ni tamchet rewab jasa te shirur gu tukla chaga yore. Yinnang shirur ni ngātsu kang gowa te ngātsu kare gu khiyo pa te top khiyo ma re se. Yeah.
So once we have a mind, once we're a conscious, sentient being, whether it's animals or humans, however complex or simple our life is, then all living beings, ones that we see and perceive and ones that we don't know of and are unaware of, do not experience, in having mind, for this reason, we all are in the pursuit of happiness, of well-being, and trying to get rid of suffering. And in this regards, we are all truly equal. But when we look at our approach, like how we go about trying to find happiness and rid ourselves of any pain or suffering, primarily we are relying on and dependent upon the outer world. Animals, for sure, their only sort of resources is dependency on their external circumstances. But even as humans, as much more complicated living beings, still we put a great emphasis on the outer world as our ways for finding happiness and freeing ourselves from suffering. And so we have a name for this, which is materialism. that's been given, where we very much depend on those external circumstances and hope that somehow outer material things and circumstances are going to give us the well-being that we so yearn for and are going to help to alleviate our pain and suffering. And so we put a great emphasis on our external circumstances, and yet those external circumstances are not able to give us everything that we need.
어때래? 디나 디셔나 가서 샘기 누르톱 제데 가리 쉬로랑이 다다 계랑 돌아 지와데 규스킨 탐체 그 땅라 가서 강고야데 차상우신 특히 누르톱도 요 말을 제데 콘톱 싫다 누르톱 요래 옛날 가서 샘 용칸 남라 강고와 차상지 요 말을 김선 강레제나네 되니 쉬로르 가사 되니 쉬로르 공부보다도 탐찰라 땐니 뇽뇽당 올로버당 되니 숑고요 말 그러나 대화 로로와 직숑 되니 대응 되니 대화 로로와 대응네 단다요나 단다 메트완다고 직 되니 숑와데 되니 착혀리 단다가주 산규 역보지고나 디질라 산규 독자지고니 람상 남마급 대화 강임바데 냠로효레 딥시나 시로리 토피 대화이나 거랑 차창 되니 람상 깨놓은 거 막도 가주 문이 임바지 그 대화지 요 말을 들이 직착해요래 딥시나 샘기 유리기 토닝아 저 강고와 차창 진답고 만다고 딥시나 달리칼리사데 가리 고효레제나 power of mind 지비까블라 샘 거랑 그 톡라 삼로 땅니는 샘긴 로르독 땅는 샘긴 로르땅땅 삼로 땅땅 저 때려봐 가주 되니 땡 디톡니 대화 집자나 니버트 잘탑 그요레스 데 만나 가수 대화 문이데 고르무 마보트니 뇨톱 그요 말에 총강나 대화 고마 집 종야요 말에 대요나 가수 will be very expensive very successful store on business organization so 데니 옛나 데니 가수 자와니니 쇼로니 가르 뇨야 직당도 쇼로니 즙니 문이 대화지 용한테 요 말이지 디 gem산지가 주 쫀두 가치시 훅 가치 잡나 문이 샘카강아지 톱고 요 말 디시나 샘기 누르톱 제아테레스
So someday kakon tokere
요 말에서 쇼로 되죠.
So to understand the power, the potential of our mind and its role in determining our experience, we also have to understand what the external objects have the potential to give us. Because as we know, as I mentioned in the beginning, and we're generally aware of, every single cause and condition, outer object, thing, circumstance, and so forth, has the power to give us something. It has its own power to effect. But what it doesn't have is the power to give our mind what it truly yearns for. It doesn't have the power to fulfill our mind and what we need. What we can see is that in relation to or independence upon our external objects, person, place, or thing, that we can get a small degree or a temporary or limited or conditional moments of pleasure and joy and so forth. But because those are dependent upon the external conditions, then they're very kind of unstable. They're here and then they're not. One moment we hear good news, the next moment we hear bad news. So the happiness that we had a moment before due to some conditions is immediately replaced by some form of unhappiness and so forth due to other conditions. And so then the well-being that we're able to get from those outer circumstances is dependent upon those conditions, which means it really belongs to those conditions, which means it doesn't actually belong to us. It's not a happiness or well-being or pleasure that we own, that's ours. It's dependent, it belongs to the conditions. And so it's not able to give us what we ultimately need. So when we look at the mind is the principal determining factor in our experience. And the way we think and how our mind operates is the primary factor. And so when we look at our mind and its operating system and our way of thinking, that's where, if we search for well-being, if we search for happiness and fulfillment, we can find that. Our mind has the power to give that to us. The resources exist within ourselves. They do not exist in the outer circumstances. There isn't some form of happiness that we can buy, that we could pay enough money for, that we could get it. There isn't a business that has figured out something that they can sell. Some store or business, Rinpoche said, if they could, they would have figured it out by now, and it would be very expensive. Something, a gadget that could give you everything you needed, and then you just had constant well-being or happiness after you got that thing. But as we can see, as is evidenced from our whole human history of acquiring and obtaining things and circumstances and so forth, the external objects and circumstances don't actually have the power to give us the well-being and happiness which we seek. And so that is the unique and most potent power of all, which is the power of our own mind.
Teni ta ona kerangsu de trawayo krengi hako yo kerangsu samlo tangna semni topgubi gemsen karis. Shoroni tana topkomando gaze nguni goyade. Teni semni topi gemsen kari ore zena tangi kerangso techi lab gore ngi tsemo tsekyo. Kerang America la trawa mampo tenden yore karejina kerangsu lapa zena anda sem zena anda teni 5 W's koto nyam te kerangso sem te zure se kyonge. Ti gemsan kerangso la trawa yong yore tengi lap ke yenze. Karepshi ni sem ko tolam de res.
Di Barther. So it might make some sense. Okay, we can see how external objects don't have the power to give us, the full and complete happiness and fulfillment that we're looking for. But how do we know that the mind does? How do we know that the mind has the capacity to give that to us? And so I already know, Rinpoche said, I'm kind of teasing, but that as Americans, that you're already having these kinds of questions because you were culturally raised on the 5 W's. In case you don't know, who, what, why, all the W's, the questions that we have. And so immediately when one makes a statement like the mind has the power to give us what we need, you already have questions coming. I know.
In Tibet, my region, parents tell children, go to sit on that corner on the chair. You sit there for a long time, okay? Okay, then go that way. But here, America, why? So
we have a very different cultural upraising, which means we think differently. And so then, sometimes those W's make a lot of things complicated. And actually give us a lot of problems. Because from that we have lots of extra concepts, and then that, disturbs and afflicts our minds. So just different ways of thinking affect us differently.
It's very difficult because one time I took a trip in Tibet with 2-3 Western people. Okay, and then there's one man was very complicated. He said he really unhappy every day. Because I said why, and he told me I need to know where we're going to stay tonight. We don't know. We're not in Asia. Whenever you get afternoon, and then you can get a hotel, and then we can find the food on the way. Anyway, he need to know where we going to eat lunch, then where we going to stay tonight, tomorrow morning, what time we go out? What time? Okay? And then what do we need to do in there? Okay, these kind of things, all the time these 5 W's come up. It's really hard. I still remember. I thought, oh my gosh, very difficult. Western people really go somewhere. Wow, that's I thought that time. So what I'm saying is, make our really these concepts make complicated. So there is. So 당이 가래랍 코레제나는 네 가수 김선 가래레스. 가래레제나 가수 샘드 그 김선제나 대화 가립시니 샘 그나니 문이 대화데 톱 그래제. 또 샘데라 람진 제야 지겨래. 더니 샘 무복강이나 람진 요르와. 왜나 매 사정 딱 봐. 쫄란장세가 남. 샘기 람진라 ngacho tangsang mamambu good news rakhayo mara ngacho takpar bad news takpar kare na mi ka chapsha na nda deni nyanchen na yin na yang nda news yin na yang nda oh my goodness kasa kani bad news ma bora khayo wa yin na ngacho semla good news yore tu takpar ngitalap ke yin ta kare re jena sem ki ramjin thoma yin ni kyang sem khorang ka ramjin te deware Jibde, sem korang karamjin la, kyun me patang, or dungar menkang karamjin de. Oya yuntan tang chibari sem korang karamjin de. Tangi good news sena tezi ki osi.
So when we look at, well, why, if we think about what is the reason that true happiness can be found within our own mind. How is that possible? That has to do with the sort of natural state or the nature of our mind. Every single thing, not only does it have a power to affect, but it has its own nature. For example, a simple example would be like fire is hot and burns, and water is wet and moist. And so too, mind has its own nature. And so these days, we seem to have a lot of bad news. We're just sort of inundated with bad news, whether we read the newspaper or listen to the radio or someone is telling us about something that's going on in the world. And so I have some good news. And the good news is that the nature of our mind is naturally peaceful. Is naturally a state of well-being and joy. And because it's our nature, you know what nature means? Nature means always the nature of that thing. That it never changes, that no conditions can alter it, no conditions can change it, because it is its own nature. And so its very nature can't be altered or changed. So the nature of our mind is actually innately or wholly positive. It is naturally peaceful. It is naturally a state of well-being. It is by nature flawless and without suffering, and possesses all possible good qualities. So that's the good news. But there's also...
I'm sorry, there's a bad news. A little bit. Of course, always there's good and bad too. No, that is not really, really bad, okay, I'll tell you.
So our mind's nature is good, is positive, but temporarily, like conditionally, we have all kinds of negative thoughts and emotions. We have all these flawed, sort of negative mental states, like self-clinging and me first and self-centeredness and a willingness to harm others in order to help ourselves, anger, desire, jealousy, and all other kinds of negative thoughts and emotions, the wish to harm others for our own purposes. And so we have so much negative thoughts and emotions. So that's the bad news. But the bad news also has good news.
Okay, so the
that is
코람 라종레스 뜸 라송나 더 지점 가서 샘그 독고 머게 위치하세 나다 쫑그 차대다 탐쳇다 남독 남바 탐쳇 그 웍적 남마요 바대닥당 남독 탐쳇대 길 탑나네 가츠대 용 탑나 대 누르 탑나 삽두 제노와 대타우시 닝아츠 누르 탑나 길 탑나 용 탑나 누르 탑나 가리 용 거래나 샘 코랑 그 럼신 그 용단 동원 듣결 용 거래
So all of those negative mental thoughts and afflictions, those are conditional. Those are not the natural state of our mind. They aren't our mind's nature. And what that means is that we can be freed from them. We can reduce and eliminate them. And so all of the negative thoughts and emotions and afflictions and all the habitual patterns we have towards those and so forth, those can be changed. We have the capacity to refine those away, to tame them, to subdue, to transform, and to change them. Those are the source of our suffering, the source of all of our problems and issues and so forth, or all of those negative thoughts and mental afflictions and emotions and so forth. But those are removable because they are not the nature of our mind. They're not our mind's natural state. And as we employ methods that reduce and refine and change those, then our mind's natural state and all of its positive qualities become more and more evident to us and are experienced by us.
So good news is
So that we can be free from all those negative thoughts and emotions, that's also good news.
Yes. They don't need to be always stuck with us. Teni ta wona teni sem ki nurtop ze der jongin di nang la kare yore zena ta ko kren di nang kare yore zena ta di nang la tondar denore dente teni kare re zena nan di sem ki nang nga cho yeni yo pi ramjin ke yon ngon tu kyoro che pi tablam tang holobur ke ken ngamba ma bo yo pa te tak tam che yongor che pi tablam te o teni ka te teni di tap te tani book dina la power of mind zeti book dina shat yo pate tip dina yo pate terese.
So then when we look at the book that I've written, The Power of Mind, this is composed of 7 key points of mind training. And so different methods for working with our mind to refine away and to change our negative thoughts and emotions and ways of thinking and make evident our mind's own naturally present resources, its own positive qualities and states of well-being. And so the methods here are for removing those negative temporary factors while then simultaneously making evident those positive factors, our natural resources within. And so that's what The Power of Mind is a book for doing.
Tani sem korang ke nang ni shong wi dewa te shirul ke ken wang kam choya yo mar.
And the well-being or happiness that the mind finds within itself cannot be destroyed or taken away by outer conditions. Because it is the actual natural state of mind that is peaceful, that is a state of well-being that we're making evident that's not based on those conditions. And so it actually belongs to us. So that's true happiness, one that actually belongs to us and comes from within ourselves. It's not one that is dependent upon external conditions and circumstances. I'm not denying that we need positive external circumstances. Of course, we need food and clothes and a home, and we need to exercise and take good care of ourselves, and we need to take care of the earth and the environment that we live in and those around us. We need all of those things, of course. That's baseline. But when we talk about actual happiness and finding freedom from
Nga tsu
suffering,
murnam ki rewa
what we
cha tang
can
den dribo ma re
actually,
zekyo re.
what we as human beings typically hope, where we hope we're going to get those things, and what we rely on often doesn't bring what we're
Den dribo
looking
ma.
for.
Kare jina
It's
nguni
not
tela yo
working.
ma re zekyo.
And the reason why it's not working and we keep struggling is because it actually isn't
Yoma.
there in the first place. So we're trying to get it from a place that it doesn't come.
Nga tsu men na yo dog dog
And
shek
so
yo re.
even though it doesn't come from out there, we keep believing that it does, that somehow it's going to be different than all the other times before, and that it's finally going to happen.
The mo cha chang sam lo tang tang
Everybody
te.
thinks that.
Tani sul rak song.
But who got it yet? Who's gotten it from out there?
The news yon zambu lang la
It
yong
should be
gre,
in the
chik
news
rak
by
yo na.
now. If somebody found
Somebody
complete
really
happiness
totally found it.
and stuff from some external object or
karte
situation out there and they
ragiona,
got it entirely,
kani
that's
raksong,
newsworthy.
How?
And then we'd want to know how.
Nam chom jak charo.
And immediately they'd have
Internet
their,
ina la yo
you know,
ra
it would
yo
be
na.
on the internet within seconds.
Oh yes. Tani nga tso cha chang nga tso cha chang ma tip shok la
And then
do
we'd
ya
all
tang
want to go to that
Tila
place
shetu
or
kayo
get
ri
that
tanda.
thing. We'd all be rushing
chi
for
yod na?
that thing, if that were the case. If it were possible.
nga tsu Amazon kana lan do.
We go to Amazon.
Social
Social media, look to see what we can buy, what restaurants we can go to, what movies we can see.
Tani okay. Tani
And we
nga
spend a
tso
lot of time trying to sort of
Wakanda,
procure our happiness from those external
Wakanda,
things.
ice creams we can find tadi dawo. You know, tani furnitures tadi dawo do.
We just keep
Tani nga tsu
going,
te tagi yo
and we
Te
keep
tso nga tsu
looking,
temporary.
and then
Te tso
each one is
temporary
not
je.
fulfilling us. We're still needing more. It's still not quite right.
Te
Because it's
nguni
all
ma e
temporary.
zekyo.
Because it isn't actually happiness that truly belongs to us.
So tadi re se tip shir
So
na
it's like that.
tadi re tangi
What's the time? Chi language is it? Yep.
so te na tani ngi ndi kerang tola kare lap ke yin zena ne nga tsu karma nga kana la.
So we have 5 minutes. I'll see what I can
So
say.
ti nang la kare re zena ne ngi kasa kala ti chi lap ke yo lo yong ke chan dor du pa chi dang sang nga tsu jig nang tang sem chir ma po yo ni nga tsu hali pa chi tani mergawa ma po shi ni ne mala mergawa ketsok la mergawa sar gyur la mergawa zambu lang kare ro kyo la so ba thamchit mergawa ma po che khyo re ti shir na nga tsu mergawa ma po she te yu gure ze te ngi heading che ya te yu gure ze gyo the pe kar chembo chigre chetam heading che na te cham ki nga so no ro ni te kyur ro wa tang nu ba me pa tang kin ngam bi no tabya da wo chi chagni dungar ma po chi te ni chong ko re cha chang la heading chi na kang cham chi la nga chu sem de tu namba kon te mere di shir na ti dokshok su kyur wi ne heading dokshok zo parwa ka tu kin ngam ba chi thok la yo na ngi khar thap ka yin ngi khar ga yin sam ya te kom cha yo go wa ta kar chembo re ze kyo kar ji na ti nga chu sem te la nur top nyima re re cheb zang zo kyo re ze nyima re la tham chit tham ba tran thap na kin ngan tak par yong yo ro wa mergawa yin na mergawa map she ni ngi zut thap ka yin sam ya ke sem te chapop zo ni maru mon ro wa te kar chembo re ze.
So I just want to share one practical method with you, something that you can employ, a method of mind training here that's immediately usable. And so one of the things right now in our current day and age, we are facing so many challenges, and there's so much turmoil and affliction, and we have a lot of fear and anxiety, and we are constantly seeing things and hearing things and that we dislike. We dislike this person or that person, or we hear news that we don't like, or we see something that we don't like. And so we're constantly hating on everything. I don't like this, I don't like that, I'm not okay with this, I'm not okay with that. We have to let go of hate, of the dislike for things. This is crucial to
Dumar
well-being
chehu de tangar tere
because
tangsang.
that is really one of the biggest sufferings that people are suffering over right now is how much they dislike everything. And as much as we dislike is proportionate to how much unhappiness we have over things, directly proportionate. And the more that we dislike, how we hate on this and hate on that, and I'm not okay with this, then what happens is that more things are just become dislikable to us, disfavorable to us, and we habituate to that, and then we become extremely vulnerable because everything harms us. Everything's not okay with us. Everything disturbs us. And so as much as we keep feeding the habit to dislike, as much as we hate on things, that is how much we're going to continue to perpetuate our unhappiness over things. And for as long as we do that, there will be no opportunity for happiness. And so the first step is beginning to cultivate the opposite mind of not being okay with things, of getting upset easily because we dislike things. Because the
Kengan mesa yo
mind,
mar, drusa chi
there's
yo mar.
nowhere you can go where there are going to be no unfavorable conditions.
Te yo mar.
Okay?
Kala.
So we start there.
Tani
And
kerol
then-
ka sem ka
But our
feeding chi na
minds
naming no
can change.
kawa
We
yo.
don't have to be unhappy with
Yur
everything.
kanto yo nanda.
So wherever we go,
Tu
we're
nam
always
yinanda.
going to, and no matter what the circumstance, there will always be something that
Ken
we
kong
might
yinanda, no
not
kuyo
like,
rongla.
that we're
Kare
harmed by,
tina nga
we're
tso
afflicted
rangrang so su
by.
sem ka nam to ko
And that's
zuri.
because of our mind's concepts about
Ta
those
sem kip
things.
samlo tang.
Our mind's way of thinking about those things. And so one of the first steps is being willing to change our mind's way of thinking, to start to drop the habit of not being okay. Every day think, I can be okay. I can be tolerant. Tolerant meaning not disturbed, not upset over these conditions. And so all the little conditions that irritate us every day generate that courageous mind of tolerance, of okayness.
Tini no pa chenyong ro.
And then less things will bother you. Less things will harm you. And the more okay your mind will be. If you can remember that resolve, I can forbear it, meaning not become disturbed or upset by it. I can forbear it 10 times a day. It will change your life. Because so many conditions will stop bothering you. You will no longer be harmed by them. They won't affect you. So the more that the mind dislikes things, the weaker and more vulnerable the mind is to suffering over things and being unhappy over things. The more that the mind is okay, meaning patient, meaning not disturbed, then the stronger that mind is and the more well-being that mind will experience.
Tip shola trawa yo pa tente yo
So
ngi shi
I'm
ko
sure there's more questions
lan
about
chik jap
that.
gore ta yen na ngi lan
And,
jap yong ta ni trawa chis.
But
Trawa do ke konya.
then now there are times for questions. And so do either of you have a question, or would you like to facilitate questions from the audience?
Sure. We have a microphone here. So if you would like to come up, please. Oh,
One
yeah.
there,
Okay,
one
one
there,
there and, okay.
Wow.
So we,
1, 2.
right, so we have some microphones. So come on up and ask Khentrul Rinpoche some questions about this, how to change the mind.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, don't be shy.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very ignorant of all of this and most things, but something just about the point that you just made about dislike and losing the dislikes and how that's a good thing. I'm not so sure that I agree with that, because in my life, I obviously have those feelings too, but I sometimes find them as motivating factors to make a positive change. There are things that I dislike, but that feeling of dislike, there are sometimes ways of channeling that to make a positive change. And the idea of foregoing my dislike seems almost dangerous, because I'm stepping away from things that are negative, and I'm saying, oh, well, this is a bad thing, but I'm not going to let that affect me. But then how do you affect the bad thing that is affecting other people?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that, Hako-sama. Once mi gawa mache, then on so leka lege omare, yapo chik your go na like cheerlock, la mi chik jamba nopa cheki.
Yeah.
Mi gawa
Kasu
chegore,
koso.
kainsen kunun de
Oh, yeah.
bang,
Take
then
me
he
to
leka
Samsung.
yapo legere.
That's I'm waiting.
He knew that
That's
question
my
was
question.
coming.
I'm waiting that question. I know what will happen. Very good. Thank you. So yeah. So this is na kare na ngoma ores.
This is very true.
Yena hating china.
But when we look at taking action, for example, when we really dislike something, like for example, it can bring a lot of fear or worry and so forth, what happens is that our mind's capacity actually decreases. And then our ability to take positive and affirmative action decreases. So, however, we can recognize when something is not okay and that positive action is needed. We need to help others. We need to protect the environment or the world or these people, or there's somebody that's harming the world, and it's very obviously the case. Definitely, we need to take positive action. We need to take action. But what is the mind's motivation to take action? So ideally, we come from a place where we're protecting our own mind from being totally afflicted and disturbed, which decreases its capacity. And we have a more healthy mind that recognizes the problem, doesn't become afflicted over it, and then with wisdom, and with patience, and with a big and kind heart, then that we help others, then we really have the capacity to benefit in a much greater way. So it's a matter of working on our mind to be motivated out of positive qualities and then taking action. So for example, if we are physically in pain, then we can't help someone else if we're injured, say, because our body is injured. So it decreases our capacity. So we might have to do physical therapy and do exercise and strengthen our body so that we're able to physically able to help others. Then when our body is healthy and strong, we have more capacity, right? So in the same exact way, our mind needs to be worked on so that it increases our capacity to help others. So it's like that.
Yes, thank you.
I know some of y'all. I can start naming names.
What are your recommendations for letting go of hate?
Oh yeah. Teni shirtang tep khona na la yore. Ta yenna yang teni ta trawa yak pore. Chikte tangor gimsen hipi thokni. Garte hating shina. Tela gupa futsam me pare. Teni pantok nisur ngirwa ro pantok gang yogi yo mara. Semla mergawa shini tedip shin dugna. Te maza rani la no pa chembo chakyo re rang sem nyomo pa ma po tang lu tang sem nika te teni nika nu pa marun roni teni nyokda nang la long kyo re tok tang po te te kha ku kyo re ze chik te te ni ba ta ta kyang trawa yak po re ndi jung di nang la kari yo re ze na ne tap te yo re khwe na chuk to zapi hirap tang teni chuk to ze na nyangje chembo zate khzo ndnika ni ke thokni phyat yore di go ni ken ngamba thamshet garib shini ngachu ken ngamba te tak thamsit ki mogno pi thaplam ta te cho ngachu garib shini kham thop shet thok khanduk jiwab zo thok khanduk te mazat ken ngamba thamset truksu gir thapa ngacho la mogno pi ram jin chan chik shet thawya te kande go khuduk ti thaplam ti na la yores.
That's also a really good question because it ties into the methods that are in the book. So first, of course, we have to understand our mind's role in the circumstance and how when we hate on things, that the hate itself afflicts us and causes our self-suffering, and also just hating on something doesn't change the circumstance. It doesn't actually benefit in and of itself, that emotion. And so we recognize how, as much as we dislike something or someone, then that we are harmed by that. And our capacity, both mentally and physically, then decreases for bringing about change and overcoming that suffering. And so once we recognize that, then we're more willing to use methods that are taught in this book, for example, for changing our mind and taking actions. And so the primary methods taught in this book are the cultivation of supreme wisdom or knowledge and the cultivation of great compassion. And so these, then, cultivation of these qualities, these decrease our mental affliction over something, our dislike, our adverse reactions to those, and changes our whole relationship to adverse conditions, so that we learn how to transform adverse conditions into positive qualities through working with these different positive qualities. And then, in essence, we befriend the adversity, and it's no longer a cause of harm.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you, Rinpoche. I know earlier you said that the 5 W's complicate the Western mind. How can we let go of the need for information and trying to control all these outside things and calm down, like the overthinking that my mind always does? But yeah, that's the main thing for me is just like I overthink everything, and I have to know everything.
5W Mando wa chikarishi go.
Re kayin sena mosam la overthink sena nam to mong chak ni tak par di korlo samo tang then mong chak ni chik dunga chik mi dewa dabo chik labyong gedwa. So di kante chik jiwar zo tap kante chik yore ju gedo.
Oh, tere. Te teni ndi ngatu ta te lamsang lap ko na te chi tanda tangi chi lap ni teni kerang ko samlo lan jerwa chik tang ni tanda ta men ro wa wo chik te chi khak pore yenna yang teni ngi tep khorang nang la tep shat yore ngatu nam tok mang tak pi tang thang jambu lang la nyogda ma po chi nam tok mang tak pi nyogda yore deep sherna teni sem jibr ni pate sem khorang karam jing gang la ni pa terang ju swa sem khorang karam jing jibares khorang ko jibde tok chik la ni pa khorang ko rang tok la ni pa chik rang ngang la ni pa rang tang la ni thab ya chik teni yores teni ngin di nang lab yo pate hirap ko kor ngi kyo thap khir chik sharna kerang hachang nam tok keb jimbe ni kaptela mangwi ni kabla hirap zyati nam tok ke khyopi ngola teni tani hirap ka tani nam tok ke khyopat mang khyopi ti ngola tani ngachu yur karong ka chik thola ta ge yor wa shertang nam tok ma bo ke yamana ndi pare yamana ma pare yamana ta tare tu sum ki dupi ngupo karong chik tang yana gimsan karong chik thola mengni nam tok ma bo ke yor haliba ma bo yenna tapshilog la ka sem kapshilog la kor ni ke yor ba yenna ta nam tok korong ko ngola hirap ka tani 츠 남도 코랑 거 ngola tamkante hirap re chokto kyuri hirap zede tinang chik di chari di hirap di namto ko ngo tagre kantin rawo dogs tedi chik tana 판톡 배 첨보 요래 쟁이 단다 labna tedi 통통 chik labna hirap ngo tok ko yorla
That's also another very good question. It's a little difficult to answer simply because it really is something that takes a lot more of in-depth study of our mind and methods for working with our mind, which is actually why I've written this book. It's an in-depth process of learning about our mind and how to change it in positive ways. And in fact, the very premise of the book is that we have so much thinking. We have overthinking, and it causes our mind to be constantly agitated and disturbed, and we have so many concepts about things that we can't access our mind's natural resources of peace and well-being that are its nature. And so the book is a series of steps where we cultivate an understanding and a contemplation, and then we work with our mind to reach a more natural state of resting of mind that brings about a subsiding of our negative thoughts and more positive ways of thinking and relating to ourselves and to the world. But I will give you one very simple method. It won't be enough to give you an immediate fix, because we do really need to cultivate the qualities of profound wisdom or knowledge and compassion and amongst other qualities. But there is one simple method that I'm happy to share that will be helpful for the time being, and that is a method of wisdom. And so at the time when you find that you're having lots and lots of thoughts about something, and your mind is just overthinking and it's agitating and so forth, at that moment, take a pause and look at the essence, like look toward the essence of those thoughts. And you're looking with a curiosity, like a wisdom, a knowledge that's looking at the essence of those thoughts. Because normally, when we're over-conceptualized, like we're really stuck on something and we're agitated and thinking about it, our mind is facing away from itself, out toward the external objects. Either we're thinking about something that happened in the past, or we're dwelling on something that's happening right now in the present, or we're imagining what could happen in the future because of this or that, and so on. And so the objects of the 3 times, past, present, and future, our mind is just thinking and having all these thoughts that are causing us to be disturbed and agitated. And at that moment, we're completely outwardly focused on the objects of whatever we're overthinking about. And so at that moment, if we can remember to take a pause and then to turn the mind and look at the essence of its own thoughts. Just look. What is it? What's there? And just like rest for a moment of looking directly at it. What's its nature like? And that looking is a form of wisdom.
Looking and resting.
And so we look and we rest. And that can be helpful. And so that's just like a tidbit of a method that you could use to apply that might be of benefit to you, that is an aspect of wisdom meditation practice. So, are we at our time?
I think we have 30 seconds.
ngaso concept chembo nguni re
We
nang to hali pa mang bo ngaso yore
have
nguni
so many concepts. Do
too
not.
much
Too
yore
many.
wa na ngaso when
So,
samsung in the
for
samo
example, sometimes I think about this. Like
na
when we brush our teeth.
then dela teeth ndi
So we're brushing our teeth, right? But then
Nam
our
tu jamba
mind
chi samdu
is thinking about a million other things at the same time.
mama bu rang ka khana
So-
la map zo khyo
And sometimes people make a
Maybe
sore in their
mom
mouth
bunga-
because they're like over brushing.
mom bu nga lap no zab zab map shi
And so we have to
Then
be
he-
careful.
sam la kha khi ka na nang ka ndi na fu yo wa
Or sometimes we have
chem de ka trakh wa
we have hair in our
They
nose and
khaki
we
dip
might
trakh
need to
yung-
cut it.
Döp shi ni yang thanking
Then if we're thinking too
jamba
much,
tang chang thanking che khyo Döp shi
even
pi
just
ni
like
kap
the
tela
time
no
when we're
la
doing that,
yang
then
Chao-
maybe we
chao-
might
chat
even
over.
prick ourselves because we're not paying
Ji ngo la
attention
na ka na la chat ko yang
in our nose.
You know, teasing, I'm teasing, but that's the truth. People told me, why I have always these problems. I said that because you're thinking something. You're not focusing right now, right here, in this moment. You have to keep our mind as right now, right here, in this moment.
That's
Thank you.
I just want to say, Rinpoche, you brought us much wisdom and much joy in this hour that we spent with you. And the thing I kept thinking is, you were speaking about the mind as in our natural state. I think your presence in our natural state is going to help our natural state. So thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Just a reminder that I believe Wordsworth is on the second floor and has books for you there. And Rinpoche will be available to sign your books. So again, our deepest thanks.
He's got his special pen.
Special pen and a thumbprint. So,
And a seal.
No, Tokala.
it's okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
We'll find it. I think it's upstairs on the second floor.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
both.
Thank you both.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.